think we have really some of the best administrators, the best teachers, faculty, staff anywhere. And I think, and people tell us that all the time, but I think that adding in a great facility is just going to help us make our kids as competitive as kids in surrounding communities going forward, because it's an extremely competitive world now when it comes to education. And I think this is, the last step in giving our kids the best advantage to move forward. So, all right, Kathy, you want to?
Well, my report is anticlimactic. There really isn't much more to report on. The last meeting was held on March 13th. We had the town meeting. Over 1,000 members of the community attended the special town meeting and overwhelmingly approved by more than a 2/3 vote. And then we had our election, and you just gave the numbers on that. The next meeting is scheduled for April 3rd. And I'd just like to echo the chair's thanks to all of those constituent groups that helped to make this a reality. And on behalf of the students of North Reading, we're ready to go, and we're waiting for the ground to be broken and to in 2014 move our students into the first building, and in 2015 move the middle schoolers in. So it's an exciting time for North Reading, and we thank everyone. So that's it.
Thank you. Mel?
Jerry.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike?
Sorry. I'd like to commend both Jerry and Cliff's efforts.
Thank you.
Meetings and their efforts for all the work.
It's been a lot of meetings.
It's been a long time,
Yeah.
too.
It has, but it really is gratifying because we had the full support of the school committee. And I'll tell you one other thing, that on Saturday evening when the results of the vote came in, it was just as gratifying to see that so many people from the community come together. And the Board of Selectmen, all 5 members of the Board of Selectmen were there Saturday night when the vote came in. Selectmen candidates were there when the vote came in. The school committee, members of Invest in Us. It was really gratifying to see this town administrator, the superintendent,
Principals were
and
there,
principals, everybody just kind of together, rather than some of the adversarial relationships that we've had in the past. This was really, really different, and I think it's a great cause for celebration, really. So, Mike, thank you, by the way, for saying that.
One question I have, I know this is the 21st century, so we probably won't see an actual physical model of the building before it's built like we used to see it. We'll have to look at a computer somewhere. But so now they still have to now do detailed specs and plans,
Absolutely.
correct? That's the first
Absolutely.
step, right?
Just so people understand, only 30% of the schematic designs are done, and that's actually a little bit ahead of schedule.
15.
Well, I talked to
He's a little ahead on his
they've been
piece.
working, but we're close to 30% done. So there's a lot more to be done, and that's the normal process. That's the way the MSBA does it. That's what we could afford to pay for. You certainly don't want to do 100% designs and then not have the project pass. So there's a lot of design work to be done, but that's going to be happening as we move along. And you're right, Mel. All kinds of things, have to be worked out as far as the interior of the building.
But what I'm saying is, but they'll also, I know that it's not going to be, the building's not going to look exactly like it looked on all those slides we saw in the pictures, but they're going to follow
Absolutely.
that model. So you may see, when the school's finally built, you may see a few differences,
Yeah.
but the concept is going to be incorporated into the
No
buildings.
question about it. Certainly the size of the building, the square footage,
Right.
number of classrooms and all of that is going to be very close to the design that we presented.
And using the technique, the construction manager at risk approach, we'll be able to move ahead as early perhaps as May with some clearings, some earthworks, foundation work for the modulars, some of that site work there. As we move through the latter part of the summer, we'll be able to start doing some foundation work. There's a whole raft of things that will come along in a stream before the final design is completed. It's an iterative process, and one of the advantages of using the construction management technique and also the 3D CAD that our architect is using.
And hopefully, with any luck, if we have next winter like we had this winter, we're going to get a huge jump on the construction. I don't know if that's too much to ask for, but certainly would be nice. Okay, any further comments? No?
I only have one question.
Yes.
How much can we charge for naming the high school and middle school?
If there's somebody willing to pay a large amount for that, I'm sure that we would consider it. But it's gonna have to be a big
Let's make
number.
it happen.
It's gonna have to be a big
Anything,
number.
anything over 100 million, we'll seriously consider
That's
it.
a great idea.
Okay, next on the agenda is a budget update, and we did have a budget workshop back on March 15th. It was our first budget workshop, and that was in response to the preliminary budget that had been presented to us back at the end of, I believe, February, back on February 27th. And the budget that was presented to us by the superintendent and the director of finance was a level services budget that we had requested, and it's a detailed line item level services budget. The budget, as it was presented, was approximately $1.2 million in excess of what we now have as available funds, so that in order to bring forward level services, which is essentially level staffing, maintain class size, and maintain programs, we're $1.2 million over what's available funds as of right now. And a big part of that, obviously, is we lost $339,000 in ARA funds that we had the previous year that went towards our budget. So at the budget workshop, what we did was we looked at what constituted a level services budget, and then I think we talked about a couple of things as we went through the budget. We talked about possible savings that we might be able to realize in this budget without necessarily having to change or reduce our staffing levels. And we looked at some various things. I think we looked at substitute teachers, professional development, the athletic budget, some of the attrition savings potentially that we could realize. And attrition savings is essentially if teachers retire, if you bring in teachers at a lower rate. And we looked at some initiatives. I mean, somebody had raised, and again, I don't want people to overreact to this, but student parking fees. We had talked about the athletic revolving account. One of the things we had spoken about was that approximately $25,000, we were realizing $25,000 less in the revolving account because of students that were unable to afford the user fee, and we had a discussion about whether or not we should change our policy on that. And then the other thing that we talked about was, again, the potential for additional revenues. So we're hoping to get to our level services budget by maybe some savings and some additional revenues. And we do have a financial planning team meeting on April 4th. That's a meeting where we have the chairs and the vice chairs from the finance committee, the school committee, the board of selectmen, the superintendent, the finance director, the town's financial officer, and the town administrator sit down and review revenues. And those do change. It's still early in the process. The budget's not voted until the June town meeting. And there are some areas that we may be able to, again, capture some additional revenues. So if anybody else wants to chime in, that's kind of a summary of what we did. Our next budget workshop is scheduled for April 5th. And at that time, the superintendent and the director of finance have agreed to come in with some level 1, 2, and 3 priorities for saving some money in the existing budget. One of the other things we talked about was that the current budget is made up primarily of 80% for salaries, 20% for expenses, and that the expense side of this budget has been narrowed down over the last 4 or 5 years to the point where there's probably very little savings out of that 20%. So we end up having to deal with staffing. So, anybody comments? Yeah.
We do have a school committee budget public hearing scheduled for April 9th. And we've also have on the schedule that the school committee will vote the FY13 budget on May 7th. And I would just like to ask the chair if we need to move the public meeting to a later school committee meeting as opposed to the 9th. The next school committee meeting after April 9th, before May 7th, is April 23rd.
That's probably not a bad idea because we'll be that much further along as far as knowing where we stand. But I'll open it up to the
I
committee.
agree, except I've loved in the past, and we know it's not going to draw a big crowd. I'd like to hear input
Good point.
from the community. If we have to, I'm going to go along with Jerry's wording tonight. If we have to save money in the budget,
Thank you.
I'd like to hear where the some residents might think we might save that money, where we've gotten some good ideas in the past, and it never hurts to invite community participation.
Good point.
And I just, after going through the whole school thing and seeing how much we were out there and getting input and how much I think that helped, I'd like to do that.
I think that's a very good idea.
So maybe you don't call it the budget hearing versus a
Public
public workshop almost, a public budget workshop,
A budget forum.
a budget
budget
forum.
forum, which
yeah.
we've done in the past.
Right.
We have done budget forums in the past. You
Now,
know what? I think that's a good idea, and if we have to schedule a hearing on the 23rd,
We can do that
we could
before
do
our
it.
meeting.
But I think it's a good idea to see if we can get,
So
you
do
know,
both a forum and then a hearing and then the vote.
yeah.
Okay.
And that way we can get some input from the community. At that time, we'll have a little bit more to tell them, hopefully, after the financial planning team meeting.
So that April 9th will be we'll do that first before our regular meeting. We'll make that part of, because April 9th will be a regular meeting, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So that would be the first order of business
Yeah.
would be.
7 p.m.
Okay.
A budget forum.
We could do that and then continue with our meeting afterwards, and we'll do it right in the, I would think, the group,
The
the large
LGF,
group
yeah.
meeting room.
Okay. In the LGF for the forum. Very good.
Problem is, we've got to get the word out and invite the public to come in on that night. We've done all kinds of different forums. I remember one year, it was pretty
Yeah.
effective. We had almost a panel discussion with principals and administrators there, and I don't know if we need to do that,
No,
but.
I think we'd
Yeah.
want to do that on the 23rd.
Yep.
On the 23rd, I think we'd want to have the administrators from the school buildings there to talk about, to answer questions like we've done in the past. But
Yes.
on the 9th, I'd see Carl Cathy
Public input.
making a small presentation, because we don't have a lot of the details yet. So people might be wondering, geez, why is there a $1.2 million deficit? Just to explain that part of it. And I think you already have that pretty much done, which you've already done for us. And then just let them provide input, whoever shows up.
And Kyle and Kathy have given us a very detailed proposed budget for level services. I mean, it's dollar by dollar, line by line. So. Any other,
Those dates?
what's that?
What are the dates?
The date's April.
April 9th, the next school committee meeting, and then the budget forum. April 23rd, the school committee meeting. After that would be the public hearing. And then May 7th is the school committee vote on the FY13 budget.
So we're scheduled to meet on May 7th?
Yeah, all of those are regularly
Okay.
scheduled school
Regular
committee
meetings.
meetings.
Because usually we do the second and fourth Mondays, so, okay.
All right, Mel, good idea. I think that's a good suggestion.
Do we have to vote on the 7th?
Wait a minute.
I think
know,
that's the last opportunity
Carl,
we
Help,
have.
I think-
help me on that.
I
Do we?
think that typically early early May is the time in which the town administrator does request that information. We can confirm that with him.
Do we
see if we
have to have a
any more room.
number? Do we have a number on that warrant? We must, right, for our budget?
Well,
They're always changing it right up until the.
I understand, but they do have to put a number on the warrant, don't they?
oh, yes,
So
yes.
how much time, when is the last day to give them that?
Well, let us, as I said, typically it's the first week of May
Okay.
that he
First
asks
week,
for
yeah.
that.
I prefer, if we can vote later, I prefer,
We'll
but if we
check
can't.
with their office.
I would too, but usually it's maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks before that you have to have the warrant printed, so.
I remember voting that week,
Yeah.
so.
That is
Alright.
the week you voted last year.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. If we can do it later, we'll do it. If not, we'll do it that day.
And just in response to Mel's question, Mel, in May, we're meeting the 1st and the 3rd instead of the
because of
2nd and the
Memorial
4th
Day.
because of Memorial Day. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Again, unfortunately, we have to deal with this, but we need to talk about a timeline for the hiring of a new Director of Finance and Operations, as Mr. Nelson will be retiring on August 3rd.
In
Kathy?
your packet, you can see an overview of the timeline. You can see that we had a public announcement on March 12th, and we have been advertising the position since March 14th. You can see where it's been advertised within the schools, on the school website. We use School Spring. It's been on the Department of Ed's website. It's been in boston.com/monster.com, and it's also been advertised on Carl's professional organization's website, known as MASBO, Massachusetts Association of School Business Officers. Thank you. The O always gets me. You can see that I've been in the process of putting together an interview committee of approximately 10 members. Right now, I have one confirmed school committee member. You had indicated you wanted two. So I'm one shy at this particular time. And so if we could solidify that, that would be
Who was
great.
confirmed?
Cliff is confirmed.
Okay, is there anybody else that wants to sit on that? Aaron? Mike? No? Okay,
I mean, we could have